Okay, Dean Legge and Quentin Grant here. A lot of people are looking for a roundtable, Quentin, so we're going to give them one without Josh. We'll get back to Josh in a few days or weeks. What we're going to do this week is talk about the SEC West. Just some general observations. Obviously, last year's national champions from the SEC West, Quentin.
Yeah, LSU. Who's going to be my number 2 pick this year. I'm going to pick Auburn first, but LSU finding a way to get into that national championship game with 2 losses and even a late loss in the season, which may be interesting to some Georgia people, especially with that schedule Georgia's going to play. But getting back to the West, LSU finding a way to get it done and showing that SEC strength once they got a chance to play Ohio State.
Okay, you've got LSU first, and I've got them as well first. We both picked them first in the Dawg Post preview edition for this year. I think you'd rather switch your second pick. You had Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, you had Alabama.
Yeah, since the more information coming out, the more you get to look at it. I wouldn't even think you'd be going out too much on a limb picking Auburn to win the West. But I'd like to say, I think I'd want to switch my pick, putting Auburn second, Alabama third.
I had Auburn second, which I'm comfortable with, and one of the reasons why is because they're one of the most consistent teams in the West. Now, last year they were okay. They weren't that great.
They were okay, but then you watch that Peach Bowl. They brought in that new offense. They're going to spread it out. Auburn's always good on defense, and it seems like they're going to be able to score some more points, which makes them really, really scary when you start thinking about them being able to really score a lot of points. They're always good defensively, so I don't think you can go wrong putting Auburn in there at the top.
I think one thing for Auburn you got to look at is they're going to play at Mississippi State on the 13th, and they got LSU at home and Tennessee at home. Those are difficult. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, the LSU game and the Auburn game, that's one of the games of the year in the SEC. It's probably the game of the year in the West every year, year in and year out. And those guys, that's a great game no matter where it's played.
I mean, if you look at LSU's schedule, it's not brutal in terms of back-to-back-to-back. They do play at Florida and at Carolina, and they got Georgia coming there. Does that give you cause for concern?
Yeah, LSU only returned 12 starters, only 5 guys on that defense. That was stout last year. That's a heck of a 3-game run there, finishing up with Georgia at home after 2 tough games on the road.
You've got now. Let me make the math right. You've got Alabama third at this stage. Tell me the reason why.
Third. Well, I think those other 3 teams are going to fight out for those bottom 3 spots.
Yeah.
Nick Saban's in year 2. Even though they've had some off-the-field issues this summer, Saban's going to get better. He's not going to get worse.
Alabama, wouldn't you agree, will know what they've got immediately when they play Clemson?
Yeah, that game at the Dome with Clemson will be a very, very tough matchup. Clemson is going to have one of the more talented teams in the country. We'll see what happens with them as the season goes on, but definitely a stiff test right off the bat. An SEC caliber team they're playing right off the bat.
I don't see any on their schedule, Bama. I mean, they got to go to Georgia and Arkansas back-to-back in September. There's no frightening stretches of games.
No, their schedule pretty much, they may have one of the better SEC schedules when you look at the schedules and where they got to play in road games and playing 3 or 4 tough games in a row. They probably have the best schedule of anybody. Okay,
I actually had Mississippi State third. I picked them in front of Alabama. I'm not sure why I did that, but it felt strange. But I tell you what, Mississippi State, Quentin, they host Auburn. They go to Georgia Tech, which we don't really know what's going on at Tech yet, and then they go to LSU. That's not fun.
No, it's not. But Mississippi State showed some signs of coming on a little bit last year. Sylvester Croom's a good coach. They return a lot of starters on both sides of the ball. I got them 5th. But that's not to say they couldn't finish 4th. No, I don't think they can crack that top 3, though.
They've got that last schedule there at the end too is Alabama, Arkansas, and at Ole Miss. That's not easy either.
No, which is very, very rough.
Okay, some turnover at Arkansas. I have the Razorbacks 6th. You, for the record, have you had Mississippi State at 6th in the preview edition. You don't feel as good about that now. You've switched them. Where are you with State right now, the 5th?
I think State's going to end up 4th. I like Arkansas at 5. I'm sorry, Arkansas at 6. I just think there's so much turnover there, going from that run-oriented offense to what Petrino's going to bring in. They're going to spread it out. They're going to throw it. the coaching change, everything. I think that's just going to be a tough sell in the SEC this year with the kids he's got in place. He needs a year or two to get his type of recruits in there, especially score points.
I tell you what, let's talk about who I think will be our consensus 5 in the West, which would be Ole Miss. Or no, you've got Ole Miss 4th. Well, let's just talk about Ole Miss. How about that?
I had Mississippi State 4th, Ole Miss 5th.
Okay, let's talk about the Rebels. Now then, they open up with Memphis. I think that's a Friday game. I'm not certain. And then they got Wake Forest in North Carolina. They get Houston Nutt. So that thing was a little bit dicey in Arkansas. Can he get them to a bowl? Yes or no? Are there enough wins?
I think there are.
They got
number one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean they got the Memphis. They're at Wake Forest. That's a winnable game. They obviously won't be favored, but
right.
Sanford and Vanderbilt? No, they can get enough wins. Who's to say they can't beat South Carolina at home?
Well, that may be.
It can be done. Can they get to a bowl? Yeah. Houston Nutt's a bona fide SEC coach, and they return a lot of starters, 9 defensive starters. So it's not like the cupboard's bare at Mississippi.
Well, I agree. And I mean, I think the question is, as always, at Mississippi and the kind of the quote-unquote lower-tier schools in the West is, do you have enough production on offense? The defenses are normally there. The question is usually on offense. The question marks at, at the skill positions. When they had Eli Manning, things were a different ball game. I'm not certain if we talked about every SEC West school, but you say LSU is going to win the West. Do you think it will come down to LSU and Auburn?
Yeah, I don't see any other way with it happening. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Auburn win the West. It's kind of hard to pick against LSU considering they're the top dog. Somebody's got to knock them off right
Does
now.
it concern you that they lose their signal caller coming into the season? He's now at Jacksonville State. I mean, I know he's a loose cannon.
Yeah, that's a big concern. That's another thing that makes you want to think, hey, Auburn maybe can slip in and win the West.
But Auburn's starting a brand new offense.
Quentin. They are, but it seems like they picked it up really well when you look at that Peach Bowl and how they ran it. They did enough to beat Clemson there. But when you're LSU's going to be starting a whole new quarterback, so who knows? So they've definitely got some issues there.
And this is the final question. I think this is an important one. Can LSU repeat as national champions? I guess for me they can't.
No, I just don't see it happening.
Can they repeat as SEC champions?
No, I don't think so. I think whoever comes out of that East will be a better team, and it'll probably be a better team that night.
All right. Well, that's what Quentin says, and I think I may agree. Well, we'll see in the next couple of days what we have to say. This is the Roundtable on Dawg Post.